Test. Oh, hold up. What's up? Can you guys hear me? Welcome. I gotta do two things. Give me one sec. What's up, Dom Schutzman? Welcome. Gotta put on some music. I'm gonna tweet this out, and then we'll be ready to go here. Give me a second. Let me tweet this out. And we are live. Come hang out. And we need a link. Copy video URL. That's what we need. Boom. Tweet it out, and let's get some music. So last time I looked up music, I went for like no copyright, lo-fi music, and it was copyright, which is like, what are we doing here? Okay, let's see this. That's too loud. Can you guys hear that music? Is it too loud, too quiet? Ooh. All right, that's probably good. Does YouTube copyright everything? Is that true? Oh well. I'll give another minute here, guys. I know I started late. Apology. Yeah, not literally. It seems like they do. I'll give you that. It sure seems like they do. They flag everything that's copyrighted. That is true. They will flag it. Now, whether you get a copyright strike or not, that depends on the copyright holder and what they want to do with it. Is the music okay, though? Is that too loud? Welcome, John. You're not related to the other Yoder, are you? Okay. I'm assuming music's okay. My voice should be okay. I see it. Not related. Good for you. Good for you. Okay. All right, let's get going. People will trickle in. So 3 things on the agenda today. All right. And for the chat, Dom, John, anyone else who comes here, I'm going to just put a note here. Questions only only on current topic in chat. And that's just, hopefully we can keep that. Because I want to talk about all these things, but I want to give enough time for each of them. And I don't want to field questions or like have discussions about other topics that I'll eventually get to. All right, so number 1, we're going to be talking about Michigan versus Ohio State canceled. So obviously it sucks, right? And it sucks for everyone. It doesn't just suck for the sport. It sucks for the coaches, sucks for the players, it sucks for the fans, it sucks for everybody. And that's both Michigan related and Ohio State related. I'm actually going to turn on the music real quick. It's a little loud for me. And it's just really annoying to see, like, this was one game of 121 games that were canceled this year, right? There were 121 football games canceled. This was one of them. And it's one of the sport's one of the most iconic college football games in history. And to see the reaction from, I mean, there's Michigan fans as well, like, celebrating it, right? Like, woo, we don't have to get killed by Ohio State, which, like, yeah, it was probably going to happen, right? But like, that's not the majority, right? The vocal minority of people are either extremely upset. Let me back off there. The vocal minority of Michigan fans are happy with the cancellation, okay? Now, if there wasn't a cancellation, a majority of fans would be like, well, this is going to be tough, right? Like, this is going to be bad. We're going to get just destroyed by Ohio State. I'm in that camp, but I still want to see the game played, right? Like, it doesn't matter if Michigan's going to get creamed or not. It's still a football game that's iconic and you want to see. And in my opinion, if you're a true fan, you want to see that regardless of how big of an underdog the team you root for is in that game. So, like, to see some fans, like, come out and say, like, yeah, like, put it to Ohio State, like, block them from getting to the Big Ten championship, block them from getting another title, like, that's cheap. And I hate that. Like, I hate that approach. And again, I'm not saying that's the majority, but that's just, like, childish, in my opinion. So that's the first thing. I'm going to say, and I'm just going to leave notes here, vocal minority. Oops. I'm not used to this keyboard. Oh, shoot. Give me a sec. Vocal minority of Michigan fans are happy with cancellation. Majority of Michigan fans relieved, but still unhappy, right? And I think that's like relieved. There's a lot of like room in there, right? It's like, wow, I'm relieved we don't get to see Michigan get destroyed in a national game against your rival, right? But you're still unhappy. Like, most would rather Michigan get stomped than no game at all. I think that's safe to say. I think most people would rather see Michigan play and get stomped. Let me put that. Rather Michigan play and get stomped. How do I change this to word wrap? Can I do format word wrap? Ooh, look at that. Most would rather Michigan play and get stomped than no game at all. I think that's fair. And it's just a bummer. So, like, let's go to a different shift here. Is the Herb Street, I don't even know how to spell Herb Street, which is kind of embarrassing. I'm just going to say Herb accusation of Michigan waving white flag. Okay? Number one, ridiculous, right? Number two, we didn't see this from OSU when Maryland canceled. 3, OSU had a canceled game against Illinois because of OSU, right? So, reasons that, like, OSU mad at Michigan cancellation of this game. One is because OSU was fighting hard to play all the rest of their games, right? And they had something like 25 players out against MSU, and that was MSU game week after Illinois canceled because of OSU cases, right? So OSU fighting really, really hard to reach that number of games, 6 games, I think, that you need to play in the Big Ten Championship without the rules change, right? We'll get to that in point 3 of what the Big Ten does about OSU. But so reasons OSU mad, they were fighting really hard to play all the rest of their games. They're even, down a number of starters. A lot of their offensive line was decimated. Number 2 is it's the game, right? So it's the game. So, like, what this means is OSU wanted to destroy Michigan, likely to have happened, right? Wanted to kind of like be nail in coffin for Harbaugh. They just hate him and they want him to be gone. And number 3, I'm going to put this as people want to blame someone for the, hold on. People want to put blame on person, not virus. Okay. The answer is right in front of you on why this game was canceled. All right. Michigan was down, like 45 players between COVID and injuries. And number 3, I think, is probably the most important point, is just in general, people want to, when something goes wrong, right? In this case, something went wrong for OSU. They don't get to play the game. It muddies the waters for the Big Ten championship and their hopes there. It just makes things more difficult for OSU. When bad things happen, and this goes for any group of people or any person, when something goes wrong, you want to put a blame on something. You want to blame something. You want to be able to point at something and said, this is the reason that I can't have nice things. This is why things suck, right? And people are tired of like blaming the virus, even though it's something that like you should be pointing at in this case, right? There were 121 games canceled. The easy answer is often the correct one, right? But it feels better for, if I'm an OSU fan, to blame Michigan, right? Oh, Michigan, they don't want to play us. It's their fault. They weren't being safe. They're ducking out of it. And it's like there's no logic behind it, right? And like reasons for ridiculous blaming of Michigan. And I'm going to put number 1, healthcare workers could lose license for misrepresentation of numbers, right? And what I mean by that is Michigan has medical staff for clearance, and they do. And that medical staff has to report the numbers that they have in order for Michigan to make these decisions. So like the number of 45 players, you could lose your license if you're a person on medical staff and you're making those numbers up, right? You could lose your job. Okay. Like that's not even that's just something that is a fact. Like you could, if you're not being honest with that, you could lose that. You could absolutely lose your livelihood if you're an employee in that situation. Number 2, Harbaugh is extremely competitive overall, right? Say what you want about Harbaugh. He's not a guy to shy away from competition. I truly believe that. You can say a lot of bad things about Harbaugh. That's not something that I'm willing to like even entertain the thought of. He wanted to play that game, right? I just think if you're questioning number 2, then there's no reason arguing because you're not going to believe anything. And then number 3 is players wanted to play the game. And that's not just like me just like pulling that out of my ass. Like that's not it. Let me look up a player here. And let me pull this up. Hunter Reynolds right here. Zoom in on this tweet. IDGAF, what none of y'all say, there wasn't a person in that locker room trying to duck anyone. Okay? Like this is from the horse's mouth. Okay? This is from a player in the locker room. So if your accusation is like Michigan didn't want to play the game, the players didn't want to play, you got a player in their locker room telling you this. Okay? If you think he's lying, then you think everyone's a liar. And that's just ridiculous. So we have a coach who has shown to be really competitive, players who have literally tweeted out that they want to play the game. You have a case where you can't fudge those numbers, or if that's the thought process you're going down, you have people on Michigan staff willing to lose their job over it. It's just ridiculous. So like the conclusion is just, it's the virus. It sucks. Okay? Like that's it. Like that's it. It sucks. It sucks. Timothy, this isn't a lecture. This is me just putting my thoughts out there. And now I'm going to look at chat here. Yeah, John Yoder, there's always a chance to win if you play. You don't think Harbaugh was like thinking about that 0.01% chance that Michigan wins and ruins everything for Ohio State? How glorious would that be? Right? That's not possible in this case. OSU scared of Illinois 100%. Yeah, and that's another thing where like Ohio State is in this position because Maryland couldn't play a game, because Ohio State couldn't play a game against Illinois because of Ohio State's COVID problems, and finally because Michigan State had their own outbreak late in the season after Thanksgiving. So it's not just Michigan. It's not just Michigan who did this. It's just ridiculous. I want to 3-dub. I want to see my team play, but I didn't need the emotional letdown. Also don't want to risk injuries for players that shouldn't be in. I mean, I think that last point of injuries should be taken out of that. But yeah, I do want to see the team play. I'd rather have the emotional letdown. Get beat on the field, you know? Like, I'd rather see that. I'm confused as to why the contract. We'll talk about that. Timothy Lang. We'll talk about that next. Season was a long shot. Yep, Dom Schutzman, you mentioned the OSU cancellation. Maryland did as well. Okay, Ramus, I hate so much of the fan base for attacking Herbstreit so much, and it turned out he was completely right. Now no Michigan fans will say anything about Herbstreit. All right, here's the thing about Herbstreit. He was completely out of line with his like assumption. He was saying like Michigan's going to wave the right flag. He had nothing to say about that, right? He had no knowledge of the situation. And to make an accusation that an athletic program is going to like intentionally give up, right? That was the intent behind that comment, was that Michigan was going to willingly give up that game. Not because of like COVID complications, but that like Michigan didn't want to play the game. That's what Herbstreit was saying. And that's BS. There have been 121 games thus far. He was just saying it because of the position of the Ohio State program versus the position of the Michigan program. It can also be a COVID case despite where those two programs are at right now. Both can be true, and they are true, right? Both programs are in very different locations, and also COVID is rampant and has shut down 121 games. This is one of them. So that's where I'm at with all that. That's pretty much it. It's the virus. It sucks. Jake Raymond, they haven't publicized the exact number of players who tested positive. No, they have not done that. Let me find the tweet citing the exact number that I found. Give me 1 second. Let me find this. It was 45. Okay, here we go. Bruce Feldman had this tweet, and Michael Spaeth updated it as well. Let me zoom in. Bruce Feldman. You guys see this? Yeah, Bruce Feldman. Source, Michigan was going to be without around 45 players this weekend versus Ohio State due to positive COVID-19 cases, contract tracing, and injured players. So it's some combination of that. I think against Michigan State, we got kind of a similar number. It was like a 23 or 27 number for Ohio State when they were going against MSU. And that was including injured players, contract tracing, and COVID-19 in that like 23 or 27. I forget exactly what figure that was. So this 45 number aligns kind of with that. And obviously it's higher than what we saw for Ohio State last week. And then Michael Spaeth adding the 20 to 25 starters, which is kind of insane. Logan Evans. Do you think Logan Evans will get that with number 3? All right, we're on number 1 right now. So we're on number 1. I'll address that question. I mean, yeah, all fans, yeah. I'll get to that with number 3 as well, Captain Ramius. I'll get to that as well, about like OSU overall. Okay, let's talk number 2 now. Okay, I'll just add a bunch of space here. We're moving on to number 2, Harbaugh extension press conference with Ward Manuel today. This was a train wreck. Okay? Really, really bad. Okay? So there are rumors. Let me put this first. Rumors this week about a 3-year extension. And this is just me establishing some like information that was out there. Incentives for winning, lower salary, lower buyout. Okay. These were sort of the like rumors going around about what that 3-year extension would look like. Okay. During the press conference today, and I'm going to point out kind of like all the facts here, and then I'll go through kind of my analysis of it. Press conference today, Ward Manuel says no discussions until after season, and that is citing potential game on December 19th. That would be next Saturday, right? And I'm going to put with some stars around it, key date, early signing day equals December 16th, right? Key date here. Okay, so this is like what we got. And I'll go into more about the press conference, but I want to start with, I'm going to start with 2A extension. I can't spell words. And I'm going to put 2B press conference. Okay, so let's focus strictly. There are other things on the press conference to talk about. Let's focus strictly on the extension part of this. Okay, so go back to when Mike Weber, right? He was looking like a Michigan lean. He was looking like he was going to go to Michigan. And then National Signing Day hit. He signed with Ohio State. And then it was, 2 days later, maybe even the day after, that Mike Weber, his position coach, left. I forget exactly where they went or what the whole story there was, but that was it. And Mike Weber was like hurt about that. There were tons of articles written, and that's just a crappy thing to do, right? Crappy thing to do is because leading up to National Signing Day, you're pitching your players on what the current status is, right? For Harbaugh, he's going to be pitching these guys that, come help rebuild. Like this was an anomaly year, come back, whatever. And sure, he can do that now, but after December 16th, a lot of these guys are being pushed into signing early, okay? And I'm going to put that as a point where recruits pushed to sign early as possible. And that's because it makes jobs easier on coaches, helps figure out numbers for roster, and I'll leave it at that, right? That's why a lot of guys are pushed to sign early. And for recruits, they want to sign early just to get out of the way because it's kind of a tedious process for most people. Some recruits enjoy the process, but generally that's kind of like what the process is. So Ward Manuel saying that there's going to be no discussions until after the season. What does that do? So like ramifications of waiting. You're going to miss on recruits that care about that decision. And this is like Xavier Worthy. I bet this had an impact on George Rooks, who's getting crystal balls to Boston College now. Bama possibly for Xavier Worthy. It could have an impact on C.A. Wright, who's possibly going to USC now. These guys probably would have made a decision by now if there was an actual decision about where the coaching staff was headed. O'Marion Cooper, FSU. He delayed his decision, I believe, but he was looking like a Michigan lean, and he still could be. But these are just guys who you are hurting with this move, okay? So you're missing on guys, especially these top two, who could be committing soon. You're likely missing on guys who care about that decision. And possibly more impactful here is you're screwing over recruitment of those signing early, right? And that's like the biggest thing. If I sign on December 16th because the staff is really pushing me, and then they take off on, the 20th, I'm screwed. I'm locked into that. I decided, and then I need a waiver, or I don't even know what the process is. But really, I spent my recruitment expecting one thing and the staff telling me one thing, and then they can just go off and do their thing after that. So you're giving them no transparency about what you're doing. You're not making any decisions for them. Like, you're just screwing them over, right? We can be mad at Ohio State for the Mike Weber thing because Michigan obviously missed out on Mike Weber, who was a good running back. But you have to be mad at Harbaugh now for doing the same exact thing. This is the really crazy part. Even if Harbaugh is extended, it still is a negative, right? Because you're still likely to lose on Rooks or Worthy. You're still delaying guys' decisions. And then, if he's extended, it still is a negative for those guys you could have potentially got. If he's released, then you're screwing over the guys who did sign and who, wanted to know who the coach, what the coaching situation would have been. So obviously that just sucks. And I think the thing that hurts to me most about it is Michigan prides themselves on being I don't want to say hoity-toity. I don't know what the right word is, but good men, right? And give Harbaugh credit. It's been an overall pretty honorable program, right? Generally pretty honest. He's fought for players' rights. He fought for the one free transfer rule. He fought for that. And to go off and do this, to not push for a resolution before signing day, that's in complete conflict of what the staff holds on their shoulders, right? We are student athletes. We are men of honor. When you graduate, you're going to be great men, right? That's what Harbaugh said in a speech decades ago. And them waiting and willingly waiting shows one of two things. Willingly, I'm going to write this down. Willingly waiting after December 16th for coaching discussions. This means one of two things, okay? That means one, they don't care enough about the recruits to impact their coaching decision timeline, okay? They don't care enough about those men, those students. They don't care enough about them and how this decision could affect them because it doesn't fit within their coaching timeline, right? That's negative. Number two, they're unaware of the impact this delayed decision has on the program overall, right? It's one of those two things. Either they don't care or they're unaware of the impact of this. Either one or two is right. It's crap. Neither of those things are good. That's bad. Dom Schutzman, I'm going to disagree with you there. Recruits, sure, they may love Harbaugh, but that's not everyone, right? And this is my point, because let's go with a hypothetical here, okay? Hypothetical decision is made December, what is today? Let's say it's December 10th, okay? Decision is made December 10th. What's the fallout of that, okay? Recruits may sign, let me put this. Commits may sign elsewhere, right? Previously committed to Michigan, right? That could happen, okay? What else could happen? Solidify commitments of others. And that's whether previously committed or close to committed, right? You solidify that extension before the decision date. It's like, okay, I know what I'm getting into. Harbaugh's been telling me these things. These are, likely to be true. I can trust that because this extension has been signed, right? So sure, you may have commits signed elsewhere. Wait, what am I saying? Hold on. Decisions made, and let me do this. Let me do extension. Okay. So this was we have two hypotheticals, and let's go with both of them, okay? So this is hypothetical 1. Decision is made December 10th, extension. Hypothetical 2, sorry, I had my two hypotheticals mixed up here. Hypothetical 2, decision is made December 10th. Let's just say parting ways, okay? So decision made for an extension before the end of season or before signing day. Solidify commitment of others, of recruits, either previously committed or close to committed. That's likely what would happen, right? You may lose some guys. I'm not even going to put that as a bullet because I don't think you would. But I only see a positive if you do this before, right? If you are going to extend, doing it before the extension would probably solidify some commitments or get guys, like I mentioned, C.A. Wright or Marion Cooper, maybe get those guys on board because you close that loop, okay? Hypothetical 2, decision is made December 10th of a parting of ways between Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, okay? You may have commits signed elsewhere, and these are guys previously committed to Michigan, okay? I would put anywhere from 3 to 7, right? Maybe 3 to 7 commits. There's a good piece from John Simmons of Mason Brew, who put together a list of those guys kind of on the fence. And I think some of those would be like Junior Colson. Yeah, I won't list them all, but that's probably the main one. It's probably closer to 3 than 7. But program commits will still be committed, okay? And that's a guy like J.J. McCarthy, right? A guy who has already said he's going to sign whether Harbaugh's there or not, okay? So even if you decide before December 16th that you're parting ways, you're still going to get those guys who are program commits, guys committed to Michigan, okay? And I think number 3 is the biggest one. Give guys clarity before huge life decision, right? And that's the most important. And I'm actually just going to move that up here for both of these scenarios is you're giving clarity in both of these for huge life decisions. Sure, hypothetical 2 where you're parting ways, guys might sign elsewhere, right? That's going to happen. But here's the issue of ramifications of waiting, okay? You're screwing over the recruitment of those signing early. What can this cause? Potential culture issues, right? You could have with 1 year transfer rule, huge fallout of 21 class, right? Say Michigan does wait until after the signing day and then parts ways with Harbaugh. A lot of those guys who are locked into that with the 1 year transfer rule, you don't think those guys are going to be looking elsewhere if it's not a good fit with the new coaching staff? I know I would. I get a free transfer. Michigan purposefully waited until they got me on board and then signed someone else. I'm pissed, right? I'm pissed. So that's a big thing to know where if you do hypothetical 2 here, where you make the decision before December 10th, or before December 16th, the National Signing Day, you might lose these guys, but you know what? You might lose these guys or more for waiting after signing day and then releasing Harbaugh, right? Or Harbaugh takes off. You might lose those guys eventually, and that hurts more. Because then you're building out your future classes, your 22 class, 23 class. You're building that off of the roster that you know. And that's the 21 class is a huge part of that projection. What do we need to fill this roster, right? Based off of who we have on the roster from our previous classes, including the 21 class. If you're risking like a culture issue with a new regime, with a lot of guys who might transfer out of that 21 class, that further sets you back than if you just rip off the Band-Aid now and let these guys make that decision if they have faith enough in Michigan to hire a new coach that will take them in the right direction, right? Those are the guys you want, guys who will stick around and give the new regime a chance before going elsewhere. Sure, you might take one of those guys who are like program guys and they might transfer anyway, but not doing that before signing day highly increases the number of guys who will do that at some point, okay? That's a huge, like that's huge to me. But like the number, like this is the big point here. Either one of two for willingly waiting here is crappy. It sucks. It just sucks. And the more you wait, the more you give, the more you're accepting a potential bad culture, more transfers, and just a really uncomfortable situation in the locker room. That's just what you have to accept. And that's not good. Okay. Let me look at the comments here real quick. Lots of commits will stay just because they probably love Ann Arbor. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Like they might, right? But how many guys who are committed to like a position coach or a coordinator? And I understand that like those changes probably won't happen until after the season, but I'd rather get the guys who are committed to like individuals. Like if someone is committing because of Harbaugh, I'd rather give them the information that Harbaugh's not going to be around before they make that decision, right? That's just a common decency thing to do. When do we fire Ward? Here's another thing. Actually, this is something I was thinking about on my run that I wanted to bring up about Ward, okay? So Ward, what do we have on him? Hired 2 really good coaches, okay? And that's from what we've seen, okay? And this is Mel Pearson for hockey. And that's Juwan Howard, right? Men basketball. Those are good hires, right? With Mel Pearson, a longtime assistant, went off to Michigan Tech, built them into a nationally relevant program. Time came to hire a coach for Michigan after that position opened up, and that was a good hire, just in general. Juwan Howard, that was a difficult hire, more difficult than Mel Pearson, because there weren't a whole lot of options. Beeline left pretty late. Juwan Howard was an up-and-coming assistant who looked like a year away from, maybe like head coach NBA talk. But he was like probably a year away from that, so there was a little bit more questions there. And he went with it, and Juwan Howard's proving to be a really good coach, right? Excellent recruiter. Things are promising, so that was a good hire. But here's like the key aspect. Hiring well and firing well are 2 very important decisions. Also very different. Okay? All we have so far is Ward in hiring 2 good coaches, and he deserves credit for that. But firing well is also very important, and knowing when to do that, when it's time to do that, is very different and arguably more important, knowing when to cut bait, right? He didn't have a choice with the other 2 guys. It was a retirement and a move from Beeline. Those weren't his decisions to get rid of those coaches, and so like it's very different, this scenario, where this is the first time we're seeing him deal with like a firing situation potentially, right? And he's not doing well there. So that's like an important thing to point out with him overall. Okay. Okay. Blake Arnett. Steven, need to include multiple potential transfers of current players in addition to recruiting misses due to the contract debacle. That's fair too. The reason I didn't bring up current players is because that's a little bit less timeline dependent, right? And I was looking more at like the extension in relation to when you announce that, or like when the decision made is around that timeline. And sure, that's going to have like a big impact whether you extend or Harbaugh moves on. That's going to have a big impact on transfers overall. But I was looking more strictly at the recruits. But that's a good point too. You have to take into account what transfers happen, whether he's extended or kept. Okay, this is a good one, Dom Stutzman. Good question here. Brian Schultz. Okay, I'm going to answer Brian Schultz first, and then I'm going to answer you, Dom. Brian Schultz. How many recruits would normally sign during the early period? I think we should have numbers of this. Michigan, 24/7, 2020 class. I think we have this. Do we have early enrollees? Oh, they don't do it anymore. It's something like half the class, if not more, Brian. I don't have the exact number. Let me see if I can find an article real quick. Early signees, Michigan football 2020 class. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, 8 signees have enrolled early. So those are definite guys. Okay. This is an article from MLive. I'm going to move this over. A look at Michigan's 12th ranked 2020 early signing class. Okay, there it is. Michigan had a busy early signing day with 22 of its 26 commits inking their national letters of intent. So it's huge. It's essentially become like the national signing day. Okay, so it's a big number. All right, Dom Stutzman. Let's go with this real quick. This is Dom's question here. Dom Stutzman. Pretend Steven is AD. What do I do? Right? That's the scenario we're going with. So here's where it really stems from. After 2019 season, map out scenarios for 2020. Okay? That's what I'm doing if I'm athletic director. Okay? I'm taking into account Harbaugh has 2 years left on contract. Really tough years in really tough end of years 2018, 2019. Main question that I have in my mind, what will impact of 2020 have on Harbaugh future? Okay? And this is like just the main question that I have like going into the 2020 season. Now, COVID complicates that, okay? But I still need to have that question, okay? So COVID hits. So then I'm thinking, how does this impact main question, right? It's a weird year. How does this impact main question? And to me, what it does is year is going to have randomness, okay? Without a whole lot of spring, without a whole lot of, with like different opt-outs, like I have to assume that there's just going to be some randomness in the year. It's going to be really strange. It's going to be a strange year. So that should accelerate and kind of alleviate my main question. What will the impact of 2020 have on Harbaugh's future? Okay. And because of the COVID, when COVID hits, that's going to lessen impact of 2020 for me. Okay. So to me, if I'm an athletic director, I need to have decision before season. Okay. Because anything that happens in 2020 likely won't help. Okay. And what I mean by that is you have to consider different scenarios. Michigan does really well. Michigan does just okay. Michigan getting slaughtered. Okay. These are the 3 scenarios I have to consider. All right. Hold on. Blake Arnett. Blake, hold off on OSU. We'll get to that in a bit, okay? So if I'm an athletic director going into this season when COVID hits, I have to think, okay, what does 1, 2, or 3 do for this contract negotiation? Okay. And this is the thought I need to have right as COVID hits. Okay. Because the team is like not able to practice. Sure. There's like a lot of like fluctuation around where, how do I prep my team virtually when we're not able to have spring practice? There's lots of things there, but I need to solidify a decision now. And I need to know, what do these impacts have on Harbaugh's future here? Okay. And to me, because of the randomness right here, it lessens the impact of 2020. One, only hurts the contract negotiation, right? Because even if it is a really random year and Michigan does really, really well, there's still some randomness in there. It doesn't add a whole lot of confidence for me because it can kind of be seen as an outlier. Everything this year is kind of an outlier to me. There are still trends to pay attention to. I still don't think Michigan's on a good path, but in general, it's not a normal year. I can't expect normal results with just the landscape of college football and sports in general in this year, okay? So if one happens, Harbaugh will need a bigger contract. They just will, right? Number 2, it's a tough decision, right? If Michigan went like, say, 5, would that be like 5-3 or something, or even like 4-4 or so? It's tough to get an extension just because of the overall like weirdness of the year. Like it's hard to negotiate anything. Like this one just doesn't really move the needle, right? Moves needle very little. And then number 3, with Michigan getting slaughtered, advantageous for like money, bad optics, right? Because here's the thing with Manuel, with this extension talk, and I believe an extension will be coming, number 3 didn't weigh on his decision. And honestly, I would understand that if he had made the decision before the season, where it's like, this is going to be a random year. I need to solidify a decision. And sure, he might get flamed now if, like, say this deal was done in March or something, right? He might be getting a little heat now for having that extension after this really bad year, but at least it wouldn't compound that with recruiting, right? Because recruiting has to be a factor. And it simply hasn't seemed like it's been a point for the staff or for the athletic director to consider that. And that's a big mistake, right? So to answer your question, what will the impact, main question was, pretend Steven is athletic director, what do I do? I go back to March and I make a decision with the same exact contract for 3 years. That's what I do. If you have to bite that buyout next year, you do it. You do it. Because Michigan has a ton of money. I know COVID sucks and it's sapped a lot of their money as well in general, so there's lots of tough decisions there. But you bite the bullet because the recruiting impact, and I feel like only, like, regardless of any of these things, it only made the decision tougher now, right? And it hurt everything else. So the inaction hurt them more than anything else. Nothing of 1, 2, and 3 happening in 2020 would have made Ward Manuel's job easier in this contract renegotiation. So what you do, you bring the past 2 years, 2018, 2019, kind of a sour taste in Michigan fans' mouths. But as soon as COVID hits, you have to like kind of put that aside and say, like, you know what? I think this year is going to be a little random. And you say that to Harbaugh. You say, this is going to be a little random. I need you to think about your future here. Let's get a contract done before this season to ensure that we don't impact recruiting. And that's it. If you get hurt a little bit on money, so be it. The downsides of waiting until after a season where I don't think any of this like helps the athletic director make a decision, that inaction just killed Michigan. That's it. That's it. Okay, Brian Schultz. For the sake of recruits, either one, UM should make an announcement on Harbaugh's before 12/16, yes, or 2, advise the recruits to wait until UM makes an announcement. Any chance of 2? They could. I mean, they could on number 2. And I think that's what Michigan is like. I don't know, man. I don't know what they're telling to them, right? I don't know what they're telling them. Here's the thing that's like crazy, though. If Michigan announces before 12/16 and you lose those guys who potentially, are going to decommit or anything like that, that announcement, those guys, you're still giving them time, okay? I don't know if Michigan is pressuring a lot of these guys on 12/16. I hope they aren't, right? Because the decision hasn't been made. They could. And they probably should wait, even if they're getting pushed, right? I hope that's the case for them because they should be making that decision without knowing where the staff is headed. So I don't know, Brian. I sure hope they're not pushing them to sign because that's just a really crappy thing to do in general. And yeah, I think that's it. Just A. Yeah, that'd be terrible, Brian Schultz. And Michigan would absolutely be demolished for that if that's how it actually goes down, if Harbaugh leaves after that. That would be terrible and just a horrible, horrible negative recruiting, just a negative look overall for the university, and it would be, and appropriately so. Okay, this is going on pretty long. Let me talk about the press conference real quick here. So here are some just crazy things about the press conference itself that just boggle the mind. Okay. Hold on. I'm going through my tweets. I want to find actual tweets that kind of blow me away here. And I favorited a bunch of these tweets, not because I liked the content, but exactly so I could bring them up here and show kind of the different things. Michigan, hold on. Where's the first one? So yeah, this is just from Sam Webb about the extension. I'll talk about this. Number 3. Okay. Let me go back up. I'm looking for one tweet here. Okay, this is just a ridiculous statement. This is from Anthony Broom. This is quotes about from Ward Manuel, and there are some from Jim Harbaugh. I'll try to parse those out, but these are during the press conference. So Ward Manuel here, from my standpoint, he has been doing everything at a high level. That's just simply not true, okay? He could be trying to do everything at a high level, which I assume he is, but he simply hasn't. That's just dumb to say that from Ward Manuel. You can say he's led this team with high integrity, and I don't know. He should word that a different way because it just gives this just is showing that yep, everything's fine and everything's not fine, and it shouldn't be. This is from Scott Bell, essentially kind of going off of my previous point. What a disservice to these kids to decide on the future after signing day. Yep. Okay, I swear I had more likes from this. I swear I had more. All right. So there's a couple things that I want to touch on the press conference itself. Let me find one of my tweets here. Okay. I'll bring this one in. So, Sam Webb, regarding the negative recruiting that could result from addressing Harbaugh's extension after the early signing period. This is a quote. Negative recruiting is not unique to this time or circumstance. Negative recruiting happens all the time. All the time. And that's from Ward Manuel. And I made this meme to account for that, right? Ward Manuel shooting down, making a decision before signing day. And then negative recruiting happens all the time. Okay. I was trying to think of a good analogy here. And it's pretend, and this is a bad analogy, but pretend there's a negative recruiting cannon. Okay. And it's just shooting off negative recruiting cannonballs. Okay. 0-5 against Ohio State. 3-3 against Michigan State. Losing to Michigan State in the first year under a new head coach. Right. Those are all accurate negative recruiting that teams could have against Michigan. There are also some negative ones that we've seen in previous years, right? Harbaugh's headed to the NFL, negative recruiting cannon. There it goes. Like Don Brown's going to leave for Boston College, like things that were baseless, but teams would like try to put out there. Members of the media would put out there as part of like negative recruiting against Michigan, right? Those things are all true. And Warde Manuel is correct here in saying that negative recruiting happens all the time. It will happen all the time, whether they are in that accurate bucket, like the 0-5 against OSU, or this coach is going to be leaving, right? Whether they're in the truth or non-truth, they are there, right? Negative recruiting happens all the time. But this first picture right there, that first picture, making a coaching decision before signing day gives opposing teams one less cannonball for that cannon, okay? Teams will negatively recruit all the time, but you're giving them extra cannonballs. You're giving them free fodder to just go off and shoot their negative recruiting cannon all over. They're tearing down your castle with that cannonball. So that's just a ridiculous statement, and it's so dismissive. That's what makes me really angry about it. It's so dismissive of a program's opportunity to shut down negative recruiting. You have a hand in that, man. You not making a decision before signing day, you are giving you're giving that negative recruiting fodder for other teams, and they should. They should. If recruits aren't actively, what happened? Oh, the music just like cut out. That was weird. If you're not actively looking at that as a recruit, then what are you doing, right? And other programs should totally say, look, we have an established staff. They don't know what they're doing. They're trying to force you into a decision before they even know what they're doing with their own coaching staff. That's completely fair. Is it negative recruiting? Sure. It's also truthful, right? It's also truthful. And Michigan's just giving them that fodder. It's ridiculous. Okay. And then the other thing. Let me find another tweet here. Essentially, what I'm trying to find here. Let me try to find it. Can I find it? Yeah, here we go. Original tweet here. Warde Manuel just went out of his way to say he thinks Ohio State is among the top 4 teams in the country and thinks they deserve a chance to represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff. Okay? And my response here, you have the athletic director going out of his way to publicly applaud their bitter rival in a press conference. Right? Play that clip to all recruits if you're OSU. Listen, we don't even have to pitch you on the fact that Ohio State is the best of the best in the Big Ten. Our rival the athletic director of our rival school, Michigan, is saying that for you. He's saying that for you, even if it's true, right? There's a difference between me saying it and let me even back up. It's 100% true, but you don't say that. You just you say we're disappointed we have to cancel this game. Ohio State's a great team. We wish we would have had the opportunity to play them. We wish them the best of luck in the future. That's all you need to say. He went out of his way here to say, unprompted, to talk about how good Ohio State was. That's embarrassing. You're right, Mike K. He did say that. That's ridiculous. If someone brought up, do you think Ohio State's top 4 team? Do you think they deserved a chance? And then Warde Manuel said that? Then, yeah, because you're kind of goaded into that. He went out of his way to say that, which is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, is Harbaugh doing a poor job this year and probably deserves to be gone? Absolutely. But you also have an athletic director saying he's doing an excellent job, going out of his way to say he thinks Ohio State is a top 4 team in the country, and delaying a decision about whether to extend his head coach or not until after signing day. It's not just Harbaugh. It's not just Harbaugh. A lot of that should be put on the athletic director. A lot of it should. Okay, you guys are all up in your Fickle, Campbell. Oh boy. I'm gonna have to do a different one for all that. All of that talk. Okay. Last topic. last topic, and then I want to go watch hockey. What does/should the Big Ten do about OSU? So this one you guys might disagree with me about. I didn't even write anything down for press conference, but that's fine. What does/should the Big Ten do about OSU? My first point here is that Big Ten just chose a random number of games at start of season, right? They decided 6 was a good number to qualify a team. Good number for big championship, right? It's an arbitrary number, okay? I don't know why they decided to choose that. It was dumb. Big Ten overall, I think, is dumb. So, I think number one, Big Ten is going to get OSU into the playoff. Number 2, get into the championship. Okay, the Big Ten championship. Number 2, OSU is getting special treatment because money and playoff, right? I think both of those can be true. I think they both are true. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, okay? What I mean by that is Big Ten is definitely going to get into OSU into the championship. They just are. And I think if Michigan were in OSU's place right now, which just dream and revel in that dream, think about it hard. If Michigan were in that position, if Penn State were in that position, I think even if Wisconsin were in that position, they would be getting the same special treatment. Now, OSU is at the tippy top because money for OSU beats just about everyone, and they have playoff implications. So OSU, or I'll put Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin. That's probably it. Likely would have gotten same treatment. Oh, I hate that. Just keep it on the one line. There we go. I think they would have. I really do. So I'm not sure about your Indianas, Northwesterns, Iowa. I don't know. Probably some, not at same level of bending backwards. Okay. And that's just a money thing. I'm sure they would still try, but probably not as hard as for an OSU, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin. And that's just a money thing, okay? What else? And then I'm just going to put here, I do think OSU is best team in Big Ten. I just do. I don't think there's any denying that. So I don't have an issue with them getting to the Big Ten championship because that decision of 6 being a good number for whether you're in or out, I think that's just dumb and shouldn't have been made in the first place. And number 2, right? Because of money. I think they should be playing it. So I don't have any issue with that. They absolutely should get in there. So if anyone's asking what should they do about the Big Ten, I think the better question is they shouldn't have chosen a number on what qualifies you for the big championship. I just don't think they should have. I don't think any team is willingly holding out to be 2-0 to make a Big Ten championship. I don't know. I think that's it. I think that's all I got to talk about. I'm just mad about that press conference, man. That was just so bad. Oh, one more thing. If Jack's here, Jack's Caps. This is not a sponsorship, but I was on Blue by 90. It's a podcast. I was on it, and Jack makes custom hats with any logo that you want. And he sent me this for free. I didn't even ask for it. And there it is. Jack's Caps. You can find them. I'll put a link in the description or something. I swear I'm not sponsored by this, but it's a nice hat. And I appreciate you, Jack, for sending this along. So there it is. Go to Jack. But yeah, this just sucks, man. Like, this sucks. I don't know what to say. They need to clear the deadwood. Question is, what is the deadwood? That's a good point. It's a good point. And here's like my final word is I don't know why you think another reboot from Harbaugh in terms of like coordinators, position coaches, another cycle of that. I don't know why you have the faith that that's going to change it. Right? He already tried that. It didn't work. So I'm ready to move on. I am. I don't think they will. Clearly, Manuel has a lot more faith in Jim Harbaugh than just about anyone else. And I'll give Harbaugh the fact that he has run a overall good program, one that I would say a lot of the people coming out of the program are good people. I think he values that quite a bit. But at a certain point, like this lack of contract talk, or like the lack of the waiting on the contract is screwing over the 21 class, or potentially could, and the results for this year can't be excused. I just don't think they can. Why would Harbaugh want to come back? He wants Michigan to win. He does. I think it's killing him that he's not able to get the job done. Michigan's still a huge job. Michigan is still a huge job. Coaches should want to play here. They have the reputation. They have the attention. They have the money. They have everything you need to compete at a high level in this conference. They do. It's not like Michigan State. It's not. Michigan can compete at the top of this conference and steal a game from Ohio State once every 3 years. I think that's possible. I think they absolutely can do that. It's like Texas. You're right. They're recruiting. You can get guys here. You can get guys at Michigan to compete at a high level. All right, that's it. I'm going to go watch hockey. I'll have a hockey highlights video at some point. They play today and tomorrow night. Michigan against Toledo basketball. I'll have a video on that. Throw a subscription on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that. Thanks again to Jack for the hat. It's very comfortable. I like it a lot. Appreciate you guys hopping on. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for tagging along. And yeah, I appreciate that, Nabil. Nabil Ahmed. Listen to that guy. Steven deserves more subs. Let's get it. Let's get to 3,000. We just hit 2,000 a couple days ago. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys. Take it easy. Big Ten Network has the hockey games. Turn that on. Support the team. They're fun. Okay. Take it easy, guys.